I've stated this multiple times, but I'm a massive Nintendo fanboy, and I'm also in a fortunate position that buying a Nintendo Switch bundle for $500 isn't gonna break the bank. So I know that this is gonna be a video that has a little bit of frustration probably in the comments, and I think that is fair and accurate. So I want to spend this video talking about kind of the problem that I'm seeing happen online, and obviously online chatter versus how people actually act and buy are two separate things, but sometimes they do have a correlation a little bit here. But ultimately, I want to talk about two things: price and pre-orders. For those of you who are looking for pre-order information, apparently you can actually go out to Nintendo. They have the site up. You can register by being logged into your Nintendo account. I think that's something they're doing to try and help stop and prevent scalpers from, kind of controlling that entire market. I think that's a really good thing. We'll see how it ends up going. Obviously, when new hardware drops, I don't think it's going to have any problem selling out, because you have enthusiasts like me, or fanboys like me, if we're being honest, who are absolutely willing to go and spend that money. So I'm personally very excited for the Switch 2 for several reasons. Not only do I really enjoy Nintendo games, my kids have destroyed all the Nintendo Switches pretty much that we have in the house, and I don't want to buy a current Nintendo Switch. I'd rather just put that money towards the future, and so that is my plan there. So I've always been in a position, I've been saving up already to be able to upgrade my Nintendo Switch to a Nintendo Switch 2. And we've all been waiting for a very, very long time. So this has been a long time coming. I personally am very excited about it. But we're talking about a price of $450 US for the base model, or you can get the Mario Kart World Bundle for $500. And based off of what we're seeing coming out of the EU, and take it for a grain of salt, game costs might also be going up, as they're listing games at 80 and 90 for physical, 80 for digital and 90 for physical. And we've already seen so much frustration within the kind of gaming cultural world around $70 for the price of video games. And I think there is a couple of things happening. Obviously, each and every one of us have felt the impact of inflation. Each and every one of us has seen our money not go as far as it used to go. And I've been anticipating a price hike for both the Switch 2, but also for next generation. I want to talk to you guys about that here in a little bit. But this ends up being the case if it is an $80 US digital copy, then I'm glad I'm trying to get in line for the 500 bundle, because that's going to save me just a little bit of money this June. Anyhow, that being said, this is going to be a really interesting test of price and perceived value for the greater market, which this test is probably only going to be visible come post holiday 2025, because you're going to have enthusiasts, you're going to have people who are going to want to upgrade, you're going to have all of that, you're going to have the holiday sales, which will, I think, do just fine. I think they're going to sell every system that they make. I don't think this is going to be a Wii U situation, because the Wii U was also a massive step confusion marketing problem, where they sold so many Wiis to grandmas out there and grandpas out there. The Wii U just sounded like it was a peripheral upgrade, not a system-wide upgrade. And thus, the best news out of the Wii U is we got the Switch out of it, and I've really enjoyed my Switch. But the price starts to encroach on an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5. So we know that the Switch 2 will not be as powerful as those systems, and we do know that it does have the ability to be portable. Nintendo has long been saying, hey, Nintendo and Sony, you can fight it out over your overall increasing costs for these games and technical leaps. We're going to just go play in our own sandbox. That was their blue ocean strategy, and I would argue they have been the most successful at it. They've been able to maintain their costs, and outside of inflation, I think essentially that's really what we're more seeing here. We're not seeing massive costs, and they don't have to subsidize their costs, because we do know they sell their systems not at a loss like the Xbox would do just to try and get any kind of market share that it can. But let's be honest, when it's all said and done, everything always comes down to gameplay. And I think that's something we've seen somewhat lost within the industry. And maybe we're seeing a correction within the market. There's multiple factors going on, whether you're following Gamergate or not, whether you're actively enjoying your, classic games. And by classic, I mean, we see the numbers, like I think it's 70%. It could be a little bit plus or minus. 70% of gamers are still playing games that are 6 years and older. And I know, speaking from my house internally, Minecraft is a huge hit. And that is a game that does not require additional purchases. I've saved so much money because we just have Minecraft. They play them on the Switch, they play it on the Xbox, and that is what it is. But we've seen a lot of people reject the cost increase outside of a few exceptions. Take Boulders Gate 3, for example. People felt that was an underpriced game. So value to us, the gamers, is going to be a key aspect. And we know Nintendo doesn't lower their prices. Like, maybe I saved $5 on a Mario game when the Mario movie came out because that game made $1 billion. Nintendo's prices are their prices. I don't see Mario Kart World going in and buying new or used having any kind of price drop. And Nintendo's the only company, I think, on the planet that can do that. We don't see that from the likes of Sony and from Microsoft. Those games end up getting discounted, especially as time goes on in various different digital sales. We'll see if Nintendo changes their tune. They've obviously added in a lot of features that I have been looking forward to, namely game chat, but it's so funny to be excited about that, as that's a 2008 feature, maybe even earlier. I can't remember what year it was that I got the 360, but think back to then. That was such a great thing. It was already introduced even prior to that with the Xbox, so even all the way back to 2000. But now that is getting stepped up with game share. Very excited to see it. Back to the game price discussion. I think what we're seeing more than anything else is that everybody's wallets are squeezed. And when you get squeezed, gaming has been generally kind of a well-received area, because for $50 or $60 or now $70, you could get some form of entertainment. And then when you think about dollar per hour of joy, you might get a 200-hour level of entertainment for 50 or 60 or 70 bucks versus going to the movies. If I go to the movies with my wife, considering babysitting and all that, like, we're talking about $100 for 2 hours, right? Like the trade-off is gaming ends up kind of dominating in that dollar per hour of joy category. But we've also seen games have gotten so expensive, they've tried to reach a wider audience, and by doing so, they've compromised a lot of the things that people have found to enjoy in their various franchises. And it's in those compromises, not just one game, but over the course of years and years and years, the gamers are just like, you know what, I'm kind of tapping out. I think there's also a kind of as gamers get older, the dopamine hits that you would get from a video game have to be bigger and more grandiose, and they happen less frequently. So there's probably a level of just gamer dissatisfaction from not getting the dopamine hits over time. But it is where we're at on this case. What I do wonder what's going to happen, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether the price is the right price, whether the features are the right features. I'd really be curious as to where you kind of fall. Because the bigger question here is if what we've seen come out of the EU is a accurate reflection of the price, if the Switch 2 starting at $450, but if you think about it, really the $500 bundle is going to be where it's at prior to the Switch 2 Lite releasing here in the next 2 years or something like that. What do we expect to see from the next Xbox? What do we expect to see from the next PlayStation in terms of their price? I do not think that they will beat the Nintendo price, but I could be wrong. It's anybody's game. It's anybody's guess at this point, but we do know that future is coming. We do know the PS6 is being worked on. We do know whatever Xbox is doing, whether they do a hybrid handheld, dedicated console, time is going to tell. We do know that is coming, and I hear that's coming in 2026 for the Xbox at a minimum. Who knows? We'll see if they hit those targets. I wonder what this does tell for that reflection, and how do gamers ultimately respond at some point. And I've made this case before. There is some price point where you just would go buy a PC. Now, I don't think that price point is $500. I think that price point is when you start encroaching in on that $1,000, you start reevaluating where you want to put that investment, both on money and on time. And the only thing Nintendo, I think, really has going for it outside of its portability, because you're starting to talk about Steam Deck price points. We're starting to talk about, when you look at the various PC handhelds out there with their level of flexibility, being able to stream GeForce Now and XCloud and PlayStation Cloud and all of those various different options that people can play, and also playing locally on the device itself. That's where, when competition kicks in, I do wonder what will win the day. I did not get what the one thing I wanted was a new 3D Mario. I'm sure that is still coming. I'm excited actually about the Donkey Kong game. That looks pretty freaking cool. But I'm excited. But that's the Nintendo fanboy in me. But this is such an interesting thing. I love when we talk about the market, when we talk about the game industry, because it literally is something that's just so fascinating, because there's so many moving parts. Everybody's going to have their own kind of litmus test as to what they want versus what they don't. And that's going to be where we kind of leave this discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love always reading y'all's comments. It is a joy. I've been on a long break from content creation here on the channel because I've been taking Lent off. This is kind of like an exception. As I stated before going into the season, I was like, I know that we're going to be talking Switch 2. I wanted to sit down and kind of record my thoughts for you guys and talk about that here as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Now, I'd like to wrap up my videos with what I call the message of hope. What this means for all of us is that I know that life can get tough, and I myself have been somebody who has suffered, because it makes us more human. So I know there's somebody out there right now who's listening to this who's going through a very hard time, and it's important for me just to continue to remind you that you are not alone, and also that the chances of somebody coming to rescue you most likely isn't happening. So brass tacks, I want you to do something for yourself today. And I give these 3 recommendations across a lot of videos. I want you to make your bed, take a shower, and I want you to kind of, maybe declutter a little bit around your house. Materialism, as it's nice to have things, it's nice to have nice things, but you can find that sometimes these things in our lives actually bring about a lot of negative feelings and a lot of negative emotions, and we might not even be conscious to that. So I want you to focus in on doing something for yourself today. And it could always even just be reaching out to a friend in your life and talking to them, especially if you're suffering, or if you got, some mental health, suffering going on right now. You're worth fighting for, and the world is better that you're in it. So never give up on yourself. And if you're thinking about giving up on yourself, please reach out to a friend, because I guarantee you, they'd rather hear your story than attend your funeral. And I'm rooting for you. I'm praying for you. And I really hope that this is something that you needed to hear today. But that's where I'm going to leave it. I wish you guys all the absolute very best. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.